All right, welcome back. Hopefully you've got your text now on the design view. I'm clicking this design view here, and now I know the line length is just extremely terrible. I mean, I could make this a little smaller for the time being so you can see how it may lay out if we give it some limitations, but that text is really wide. But that's just the way text needs to be when we're in this position. It's unformatted. It's going to go as long as it can until you put in a paragraph break. Let's go back to split view. All right, if you've got yours separated, I know that this heading right here, and by the way, look at the code view real quick. I'm clicking on code view, and look at these tags that happen. I want you to get a little familiar with some tags. What this is saying, by the way, these lines here, these numbered lines, I'm not saying they're not important, but notice everywhere that there's some kind of important tag, and even if there's not, they're just lines so us to know and reference things, kind of like having lines in Microsoft Word, you know, on line page 78, line 118, please look at blah, blah, blah. That's kind of what these are references for, so you can know where you were at. But it's okay to have space. I like to organize my code so I can see where I'm at a bit better. Some people get frustrated with that, but I like to have those little clusters of separation. Well, anyway, I can see right here, this is, by the way, a paragraph break. See, the open tag P means paragraph begin, and then this is the paragraph end, and that's why we have a double space, and then it looks like another line break here. So that's maybe too big of a space. I'm going to back that off. I got rid of the line break. So I've got a paragraph. Buy a balloon was the header. No, I didn't get rid of something. I got buy a balloon ride. That's going to be a header eventually. And then I got a paragraph break. Call local pilot, got a paragraph. Paragraph breaks everywhere, as you can imagine. If you see something like this, here's another line break. I'm going to get rid of that. And anyway, let's kind of go see what is going on in the code or the design side so we can see what's happening. So I know that this is a header. Here's a sentence, a paragraph break, sentence, paragraph break. Here's another header or subheading. Here's another subheading. Here's another. That goes with my document. It looks like very little right now, but we're going to organize it in a minute. So I want you to know a little more about coding. For example, if I want, let's leave this type. By default, the type is always going to be black. It's always going to be something like Times New Roman. That's just the way those WYSIWYG programs work. What you see is what you get. WYSIWYG if you do the acronym. I'm going to highlight this. Now I can go down here in my property bar. If you'll see at the very bottom, there's a property bar. So if I click on text, I get text properties. Make sure down here in the property bar, between this toggle, CSS, HTML, just stay on HTML because we don't want to mess with styling yet. If I want that to be bold, sure I could come up here and I could say bold. Let's see what happens. Is that bold? If this one's another header, I said bold. Let's see what happens in the code. I'm going to highlight buy a balloon ride, and let's look over here again in the code. What do you see? The word strong on either side, and then strong closes, and it wraps around just that word right there, that phrase, buy a balloon ride. There's actually another tag for bold, which is simple. It's B. So if I change it on either side, I say open B, close B, you still see that it's bold here. If I said italics, watch this. All right, let me zoom in a bit for you. Buy a balloon ride. I want it to be bold in italics. Well, I would say this. I for italics. And then over here inside the B, because you have to keep it in the same reverse format, I'm going to say /, and then I. By the way, when you type that /, it typically auto-fills for you, so be careful you don't double type something. This is telling me I've got a paragraph open here. These little spaces don't matter between, but a paragraph break, then it says be bold, be italics. Then coming out it says close the italics, close the bold, close the paragraph, and that is what we call a full tag. And you can see all of that happen right here. When I click, it's now bold, it's italics, and it's got a paragraph break around it. Beautiful. But that is the philosophy of this kind of markup language. You basically have a tag, and the tag oftentimes have properties and sometimes values. We'll talk more about that later. Well, I don't really want this to be italicized. I kind of want it to be bold, but let me come back then and let's find, I highlighted here. I'm going to go to my code and see where it's at. I'm going to get rid of that italics, okay? And make sure you get rid of everything, every one of those angle brackets, and you get rid of the close tag. All right, so we've got buy a balloon ride and get involved in ballooning, call a local pilot. Let me show you another way though. Since those are headers, zooming out just a bit, I'm going to go highlight this text, get involved in ballooning. Okay, that's not really my main headline yet, but it's the first subheading in the document. Zoom on out so I can see my property bar. I hope you can see this. All right. All right, in my property bar down below, I have highlighted get involved in ballooning. If you'll see this formatting, paragraph formatting, down in the bottom left-hand corner at the bottom, see? This is the property bar. Make sure it's HTML mode. I see paragraph. Well, that's just body copy. That's the paragraph styling, if you will. And I'm going to go to heading 1, which is the largest. Heading 6 is the smallest. All of these are like headings. You're not like footnotes. They're not like photo captions or body copy. They're just headings that stand out. I'm going to say heading 3 because that's probably a medium size. Let's go up to the top here and see what happened. Well, get involved in ballooning. Do you notice this? It's a little bigger than this body text. So I'm going to zoom out so you can see these things happen concurrently. But it says get involved in ballooning. I'm going to highlight it. I'm coming down to my property. Let's say heading 2, which is a little larger. It did get larger. And then go heading 1, which is the largest. Okay? Fine. That sounds great. I think I like heading 2, so I'm going to keep that distinction. And why don't you do that with yours? And hopefully you've got some kind of subheadings. If you don't, make up one. You know, it doesn't matter. I'm going to do these on each one of these. By the way, what do you think is going to happen in the code when I'm doing this using a WYSIWYG? Some of you are guessing it. You know that it's going to insert some kind of tag, some markup that says be heading 2. What do you think that is? Let's look over there real quick. Let's zoom in. So where it says call a local pilot right here. It put an H2, which means heading 2. Okay, you've already learned by osmosis, you know, that here's a line break. BR means line break. P means paragraph. H2 means heading 2. It's a size, 1 being the largest, 2 being the second largest. Well, you're already stylizing text through this means. H2, H2. I'm going to get every one of these that I call headings. I'm going to make them H2 with my tool down here in my property bar. Find a balloon club, H2. Okay. Learn to fly, H2. I could color this, but I don't want to do it yet. New balloon ride business guide. I'm going to make that a little smaller, call it H3, just because I want to. Starting a balloon ride business, do an H3 again. We've got a lot of subheadings on these things, so all right. Good enough. Let's zoom back out and just kind of see what we've got so far. Things are starting to take a little shape as to some kind of semblance of stylization. All right, I don't want to do too many styling because the styling really wants to happen in the CSS when we get into that, and that is in a style sheet that we'll create that's going to stylize both of our web pages. Let's let you finish this up and get this just where it's looking something like this. And I've got basically 3 different heights right now. I've got headings that are H2, I've got some subheadings that are H3, and then my body copy, just the regular copy, is set to paragraph. All right, talk to you in a moment.